Federal lawmakers have revealed plans to an imminent revamping of Nigeria's foreign policy, aligning it with global best practices and shifting focus away from Africa. In pursuit of this goal, Senator Abubakar Bello and Honorable Abdul Mumuni Jibrin, chairman of the Senate and House of Representatives Committees on Foreign Affairs, held discussions with President Bola Tinubu. Following the meeting, Senator Bello highlighted the upcoming changes, emphasizing efforts to enhance and clarify the nation's foreign policy. Meanwhile, the Kano State lawmaker Abdul Mumuni Jibrin seized the audience with the president to discuss the political crisis in Kano State.
Mr. President is very much interested in changing the dynamics of our foreign policy, which has been, if you may call it, for a while now, obsolete. There hasn't been any major review in foreign policies. And the time has come now to take the bold step towards looking at some of our foreign policies to have them in line with best practices and to international standards. So yes, I believe going forward, we're going to be working very hard with the executive arm to look at all our previous agreements and treaties or what have you, to see those ones that need to be amended or those ones that need to be implemented. So yes, there's a lot of work to be done, and by God's grace, I think we'll see it through.
So I also had my own chat with him, and particularly on how to ensure that we continue to have peace and harmony in Kano, and also proffer some recommendation in that regard. And hopefully we believe that the burning crisis in Kano, as regard the Kano governorship seat, will be resolved amicably without prejudice to the cases that are in court. Well, of course, you know, the president, what he wants is peace, and he will continue to support and encourage peace.
Okay, joining us now to take a look at Nigeria's foreign policy and proposed amendment is Ambassador Joe Keshi, who is a retired Nigerian diplomat and permanent secretary, Federal Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Very warm welcome to Newsnight.
A very good evening to you, and compliments of the season.
Same to you. Well, Africa as a center or corner piece of Nigeria's foreign policy, particularly during the Muritala Obasanjo, in fact, from Nigeria's independence, the Tafawa Balewa regime, Muritala Obasanjo regime re-emphasized it, the Babangida regime and the rest, seems to have given Nigeria a very strong voice in the Committee of Nations, whereto Nigeria was seen as the giant of Africa. What will be the shift this time, away from Africa being the corner or centerpiece?
Frankly, frankly, I wish I know exactly what the legislators mean, because I heard them talk of international best practice. In foreign affairs, there's nothing like international best practice. I don't know where they got that from. And I think that I would honestly caution, they have the right to go to the president and discuss, you know, foreign policy or the idea of what they think that we should be doing, you know, today. But I think they should allow the foreign minister to lay out the foreign policy of this country agenda. And by the way, I think on Thursday this coming week, the foreign minister is going to speak on Tinubu's foreign policy under the auspices of the Association of Retired Career Ambassadors of Nigeria. We're organizing a lecture so that giving the foreign minister the opportunity to lay out, you know, what the focus of this administration will be in terms of foreign policy. So hearing the legislators saying that they want a change in accordance with international best practices, there's nothing like that when it comes to foreign policy, simply for a number of reasons. But the most critical thing is that, number one, you know, foreign policy is fundamentally based on national interest. And national interest does not dramatically change overnight or at all. And this is why you find that all over the country, the principles that were laid some 100 years ago survives, till today. So when the prime minister, in 1960, enunciated the cardinal principles of Nigerian foreign policy, they virtually remain the guiding principles of, what we've been doing in the years. A few things we need to go. For example, we've done away with colonialism, we've done away with apartheid and things like that. And so when you see AU itself, Africa focusing on economic development.
The trade. Yeah.
And then you now say the foreign minister has actually spoken a couple of times that they want to focus on what he called 4Ds, demography, democracy, development, dialogue. When you look at it, what happens over time is that every government that comes to power, brings its own style and sometimes slogan and emphasis to what they want to do in terms of foreign policy. But oftentimes you never see dramatic changes like this. Of course, there's a need to emphasize the fact that for us even to be able to pursue our foreign policy today, we need to do a lot more at the domestic level, for the simple reason that the domestic policy or foreign policy is an extension of domestic policy. So when the gentlemen say they want to change things, number one, I'm not too sure it's their responsibility. Their responsibility is to approve what the executive brings to them. Because, for example, before the prime minister went to New York to talk about Nigerian foreign policy, 2 days before independence, he addressed the National Assembly in Lagos.
Yes.
And talked about Nigerian foreign policy. And he got the backing of the House before he went to New York and enunciated the cardinal principles of Nigerian foreign policy.
And that's what, like you said, with your experience as a retired diplomat, all the Nigerian governments have built on.
They've built on it.
Yes.
And this is what this government also, I believe, will eventually do. Because look, when you look at what the foreign minister is focusing on, it's a rehash in a different way of most of what we've done before.
Yeah,
development,
from 1960. Yeah.
Development, for example, you could actually say it's another word for economic diplomacy.
Absolutely.
He's talking of the diaspora. Yes, we need to emphasize the diaspora, but it's not a question of just emphasizing the diaspora, which of course you know that I've been very much involved with from the beginning. It's a question of creating an environment in this country that would allow the critical mass of diaspora to be involved in Nigeria's development. Yeah. And when you talk of democracy, now that's where I have I'm a little bit a discomfort situation because of our own, electoral crisis. So you cannot be having electoral crisis in your country and you are somewhere else talking of democracy. No. So if we want to emphasize democracy, first thing first is that we got to get our democratic behavior. And institutions working. Democracy is not all about elections. It's more than elections. And we should understand that and ensure that it is working. So if, for example, you guarantee freedom of speech in this country, you do not harass anybody, the police behaves, the military behaves in the way they treat people, human rights, you can actually go out and preach the same gospel around Africa and defend it around the world. But where you have, let me use the word, where you have comment or questions about your own condition, it would be ridiculous for you to go out and
I know, Ambassador Keshi, I know you're not in service again, and we've agreed that Nigeria's foreign policy is, being built on every now and again. But what's your perception, out there today of Nigeria in the standing of committees in Africa First, which is our centerpiece?
Well, that's what I refer to, that look, first, Nigeria is very well respected throughout the African continent, number one. The disappointment of Africa is that they actually expected Nigeria to be not where Nigeria is today, but to be well over there.
And El Dorado.
Yes, and then drawing the rest of Africa along with it. When you speak to African leaders, and I've had the opportunity of doing that a couple of, it is the fact that they feel this disappointment that Nigeria has not matured, has not grown up to begin to speak, as today, when you look at around the world, you probably find that in each of the continents or regions, you find one powerful, strong voice that you can single out and, and things like that. So, but I'm hoping that if we can get our acts right internally, if we can make our economy strong, if we can, get our security situation right and ensure that we have a strong, well-equipped military, and other things are going on well, we'll be back to where the world actually wants to see us. Since the 60s, the world, Time magazine, they actually predicted.
Yeah. Nigeria's...
And everybody had so much hope about this country. I sincerely hope that we'll recreate that. We'll be able to achieve that goal that the world has expected of us when we became independent in 1960.
Should we be asking how we lost it? Thank you so much.
We know how we lost it, so we don't have to ask.
Thank you so very much,
Thank you so much, and Merry
Joe
Christmas.
Keshi, former Nigeria's permanent secretary in the Foreign Affairs Ministry. Thank you.
Thank you. Merry Christmas in advance.
All right.